Another common code smell is a method with long parameter list. The more parameters we have for a method, the harder it gets to understand that method and its intention. Take a look at this method call. Check notifications, null, 1, true, false, datetime.now. What do these arguments represent? What is null? What is 1? What is true? What is false? We cannot tell without having a look at the implementation of that method. I note that a method like that, every time we want to call it, we have to pass so many arguments. So not only that method is hard to understand, but it's also hard to use. Okay, let's open up Visual Studio and see how we can refactor a method with long parameter list. So this example is called long parameter list that you can find in this folder here. Take a look at this class. We've got a bunch of methods for getting reservations. Like the first one is get reservations that takes date from, date to, user, location ID, location type, and customer ID. We have another method here, get upcoming reservations, with similar parameters, date from, date to, user, location ID, and location type. Here is another method, get reservation date range, which takes date from, date to, and reservation definition. And here is another method, create reservation, which again takes date from, date to, and location ID. So the first thing I see in this code is date from and date to are passed to pretty much all methods in this class. These are concepts that are highly related. So what we need to do is to encapsulate them in a class called dateRange. And this way we can reduce the number of parameters in each of these methods by 1. And that's to start with. Later we'll make it even better. So how can we do that? First, let me show you the poor way of doing that. The poor way is to go here and create a new class like dateRange, create a couple of properties, and then go here in this method, manually change these arguments here to dateRange. See, the code immediately broke. You have to go and update this here. So let's look at the safe way of doing this refactoring. So again, we use ReSharper for that. I put cursor here on this get reservations method. I activate ReSharper refactoring commands with Ctrl-Shift-R. And note that here we have a bunch of refactoring options. In this example, I'm going to use the last one. Extract class from parameters. So in this dialog box, the name that ReSharper is suggesting for this new class is called get reservations params. That's not a good name. So I'm going to change it to dateRange. And by default, ReSharper selects all parameters of that method to be included in this new class. I'm not interested in all of them. I just want date from and date to. So I'm going to deselect all of these and just select from and to. And I want this to be a top level class. I don't want this to be nested inside this long parameter list class. So I'm going to put that here. If you want to use a structure, we can select it here. Let's go next. Let's see what happened. So ReSharper created a new class called dateRange. Note that it's an immutable object, which means it has a couple of private fields that are initialized in the constructor with public read-only properties, so you cannot change them. Now, ReSharper automatically changed the definition, the declaration of this method, so it gets a date range instead of date from and date to. And it automatically modified all those references to those two parameters that it removed. So again, this is safe refactoring. We have not broken any code. Now let's do something similar with other methods here. So again, this method, get upcoming reservations, takes two repetitive parameters, from and to. Now, unfortunately, as far as I know, it's not possible to change this method to get a date range object. So we need to do step-by-step refactoring. What I'm going to do is I'm going to repeat the same step here. So Ctrl-Shift-R, select extract class from parameters. We see the same dialog box. I'm going to keep this name here for now. And I'm going to deselect all these parameters and just select from and to datetime, just like before. And I'm going to use a nested class in this case. Let's click next. So again, ReSharper created this new class with from and to. which looks like our date range. So we want to get rid of this class shortly. Let's go down here. Now it changed the declaration of this method to take a get upcoming reservations params object, which is similar to our date range. Now what I want to do is I put the cursor on the method name. I want to change the signature of this method in a safe way. So with Control-Shift-R, now you see the first option is change signature. There's also a shortcut for it, Control and F6. Let's bring it up. So I want to change this parameter, get upcoming reservations params, to a date range. And also I want to change its name to date range. Note that in the preview, we can see the signature of this method is changed such that it gets a date range object. So let's click next. And again, ReSharper automatically fixed those references here. And because we did a safe refactoring to this parameter, if there were any other references to this method, ReSharper would automatically try to fix them. It's not always successful in that, and sometimes you need to do a little bit of tweaking, but this is at least safer than manually changing all this code by hand. Now we can go here and get rid of this temporary class that we created. So again, with Control W, I select the entire class and delete. Let's repeat the same step for this get reservation date range method here. So I put the cursor, Control-Shift-R, extract class from parameters. I'm gonna select only from and to and accept this default name because we're gonna get rid of that. So good. Now I'm gonna change the signature of this method with Control and F6. And I'm going to change this data type to date range. And confirm that. All good. Let's go back here to this temporary class, get reservation date range params. Select it, delete. And the last one, create reservation. Again, Control-Shift-R. Extract class from parameters. Just select from and to. Next. Back to the method here. Control and F6. We want to change the data type to date range. And we're done. So let's get rid of this temporary class. Okay, let's take a look at our code again from the top. So we've got this date range that now we are reusing in 4 different methods. And our methods now, instead of getting 2 parameters like from and to, they get a date range, like this one here, or get upcoming reservations, or this one here, or this one. So it's cleaner. Now let's take this to the next level. Back to our first method. See, these 2 methods have something in common. These 2 methods. They both get a date range, a user, a location ID, and a location type. This one gets a customer ID, which is optional. This one doesn't. So to me, it looks like these are filters for getting a list of reservations. We can call it reservation query. So let's repeat the same steps and extract a new class called reservation query from these parameters. So Control-Shift-R, extract class from parameters. I'm going to call this class reservations query. And I'm going to include all these parameters here. And I want to push it to a top level class instead of a nested class. Next. Done. So we got this new class, reservations query, with these fields. And the signature of our method changed to reservations query. And this is much more readable. In fact, I would like to change this parameter name to just query. That's shorter and still has the same meaning. So I press F2 here and change it to query. There you go. Now let's repeat the same step with get upcoming reservations. Again, this one has all the old parameters. So we're going to trick it. So Control-Shift-R, extract class from parameters. We just go ahead with the default. Now we get back to the method. This time I'm going to change its signature. Control and F6. So I'm going to change the data type of this parameter to reservations query and call that parameter query. There you go. Clean it up. Now let's get rid of this temporary new class we created. Control W, delete, just that. Now take a look. This method takes only one parameter. It's a query object. Same, this method. Get a reservations date range, gets a date range and a reservation definition. And finally, create reservation gets only 2 parameters. So what I want you to take away from this lecture is to limit the number of parameters of your methods to 3. When you have 3 parameters, you're pretty much on the edge. More than 3 parameters, most of the time is a code smell, and you need to get rid of unnecessary parameters or encapsulate the logically related ones into a class. In the next lecture, we'll take a look at output parameters.